All right. Well, hey there, and welcome back to another show. It is now, mid-May, mid-March, and we are cruising through into spring. Happy spring, everyone. And this week, I'm just so excited. We've coming into April is always a special time for my podcast since the very first season. And it is because it is Limb Loss, Limb Difference Awareness Month, the whole month of April. And I usually try to get that filled with special guests because mostly you hear from me all year. And this is a time where I can pull back and you can hear other people's stories depending on what avenue we're taking. And this year I'm starting out this April with a very special guest next week. And I'm so excited for you to meet her and hear her story. She is not someone with limb loss or limb difference, but her new book, her first book, is going to be the theme of April's Limb Loss, Limb Awareness podcast episodes, which is going to be Bouncing Back. And it wasn't a far cry to tie all this together, and it was just crazy how it all worked out. And I have to share with you that I have known Coach Dar, who is going to be my guest next week, for just over a year, I guess. And she just had a book launch party a couple weeks ago. And prior to it, I had said, geez, it would be great to have you on. Bouncing Back is really kind of a theme that I tie in with most of my motivation or personal journey is how do we bounce back when we lose a limb, whether it's traumatically through disease or sickness, or if it's elected, like for me. And when I saw that her book was called The Art of Bouncing Back, and here is her book. If you're watching on YouTube, it's from Coach Dar. And like I said, it's called The Art of Bouncing Back. You can now get it. And I would highly suggest you grabbing this, taking a peek into it and reading it before next week's interview with her, because I think you're going to love the way she speaks, the way she reaches out. She works with a lot of professional athletes and helping them achieve their highest level. She works with corporations. She just recently, oddly enough, spoke at the Youth Empowerment Camp for Amputee Coalition back in my home area in Chicago just a couple weeks ago. So I'm so excited to have her on next week. So you don't want to miss that. But like I said, I had reached out to her and said, gosh, I love the name of your book. Bouncing Back is truly what amputees need to do to be successful. And the ones that I have met, that we all have bounce back stories. And I said, geez, I'd really love to make that my theme for April. And she's like, that's awesome. Go for it. So Coach Dar, hats off to you. Thank you very much. And I look forward to having you on next week. Right after that, I start going into a good grouping of people who have gone through bouncing back in life after life has dealt them a harder journey because of limb loss and limb awareness, because that is the focus of April for me. And usually the only time I really have guest speakers on is during April. Normally it's just me and my personal journey. So going into that, I thought, geez, there's so much when it comes to bouncing back and that idea. And quite frankly, whenever I'm looking for new guest speakers for the upcoming April Limb Loss, Limb Difference Awareness Month speakers, I obviously am looking for someone who has limb loss, upper or lower. Last year will be a hard one to top. I had several, actually every week was some sort of para-Olympian. And right now, especially because they were all like ski snowboard kind of people. This is we've had so much snow in the West here that they're all like competing now. And a lot of them are actually overseas competing in Italy and such. So I may be bumping some of my April guest speakers into May when they can come back and come down from all their competitions. And but I wanted you to know that when it comes to what I notice the common thread is that each one of these people, and I don't try to take just elite people, but their stories tend to be good. And when people are going through a hard time in their life and unpredictable circumstances such as limb loss, but a plethora of other things, bouncing back has certain things that help you bounce back and be successful. You don't need to become an athlete, an Olympic athlete or a gold medalist, but, and I'm speaking from experience there, I am not an Olympic athlete, although part of me sometimes wishes I was, but my journey is different. And, but these people all share very common threads when it comes to their successes. And it really is just about being successful in life and what makes you happy. You may not want to be a Paralympian, but what would make you happy is bouncing back and doing the things you loved. Like for me, doing the things I loved with my family that I couldn't do when I was having all the knee problems. And so being able to take my leg and mentally get through that and then move on to exceeding or meeting my expectations and then exceeding some that I didn't even know were possible. I use my journey to show you what my thought process are. You know, I tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like 2 weeks ago was horrible. I had the worst couple, like 4 or 5 days, and it was, the pain was so high and intense, and I couldn't sleep, and it just was a bad experience. And I was very raw with you on that, because you don't need to see that every success story is like golden spoon, there's a silver spoon in your mouth, as the saying goes, right? And there is no such thing. We all have to work for it. So it just depends on what your story is, what your circumstances are, and where your goals are. And so this next month is very near and dear to my heart. And the people that I have asked to be on have been so gracious, and it's such a wonderful community of people. They all want to be able to share their story if it brings hope and empowers others. And that is why I choose who I choose. And so there are several I'm still waiting to hear from, because I know that their schedules are so crazy, and I'm really kind of a procrastinator. Probably should book this like 6 months in advance, and I never do. But I really hope you'll stick with me starting next week with Coach Dar, talking about her journey. And, you know, I didn't know a lot about it until I started sitting down and talking with her. And she has a very empowering journey where she went through a lot to get to where she's at today. And her book, she'll tell you, but her book has been in the works for years. And so I'm so excited and so proud of her for getting this out there, and quite frankly, how it can tie in to any of our journeys. But I'm definitely tying it into limb loss and limb difference and the art of bouncing back. You know, what does it take internally and in our heart and in our mind to actually take a hit that knocks us off our feet, literally and physically, metaphorically, however you want to say it, and then get back up and keep chugging forward, even if we get knocked down time and time again. And what we'll be talking about this next, month and a half probably, will be, what is it that it takes? What is behind the successes of all these different people, and how can it relate to you and your story? Because we all have a story. We're all put on this earth for a reason. We all have something to share in the tragedy, in loss, in horrible circumstances, and in our fight. And so that's what my guest speakers, the reason why I bring guest speakers on in April. You know my story. You've heard me time and time again talk about it if you've been around the block with me for the last 3 seasons. But it's really neat to hear other people talk about what they went through, and understand that we are also the same in that respect, that we all have a tragedy in our life. We all have a circumstance that tries to take us down and take us out of the game of life. but we all were built to fight, and we were all built to rise back up. And that is where my April guests, I'm hoping, will take you on their journey so you can see how to fight on yours and what it takes to kind of rise up. So with that being said, like I said, we have several awesome guests coming on, some that you've heard from before and some new ones. And I'm always looking out and seeing what's there and who inspires me and who I think needs to be able to tell their story. And so I hope you will, one, grab Coach Dar's book and take a look at it for next week's interview. And if you have questions for her or anybody that I may have on, please DM me, because I would really love to input what the general population of people have questions about. Also, as our journey begins and stuff, I want to talk to you about, with this April coming up and the joy it brings me to talk to other people and learn their stories and to be able to just feel empowered by them even more so. I sat there and I was thinking, in December, I had done a podcast where I was very honest with you. So one of the biggest concerns with my journey was that I no longer could do anything with my family, who we were all very active. We were skiers and we liked being at the ocean and we hiked and we were outside a lot. And in Arizona, obviously that's a majority of our life. And when I got my knee injury in 2013, for 5 years, I went through 10 surgeries and I had no range of motion and I was in so much pain. And so I didn't do anything. I couldn't even walk down to our group mailboxes down the end of the block because there was too much pain, too much swelling, too much throbbing in my leg and in my calf. And when I decided that amputation was the final route for me and where this was leading to, one, I had to come to grips with that reality. It wasn't even easy to say the word amputation, let alone live it out in my head and mentally grasp it. But it was a long wait between booking it and actually going through with the surgery. 4 months of thinking it through and questioning my sanity on that. But when I came to grips with it, when I realized that this was my destiny to go through this, that's when I decided it was time to share, and that's why I have the podcast. But one of my first goals was to be able to go on the ski trip my husband had planned that April, 4 months later, not even for a full 4 months, just January, February, March. Yeah, it was like 3.5 months after my surgery. And I told my husband, I'm going to ski no matter what, I'm skiing. And wasn't sure what it was going to look like, but I did know I wanted to be standing. And sure enough, I got out and I skied that April. So my surgery was December 18th of 18, and I skied April 4th of 2019. And was it hard? It was so hard. Yes, it was very hard. It was physically demanding for someone who had been sitting on her butt for 5 years. I was in shape when it happened. And then, 5 years of doing not much of anything but healing. Physically, it was the most demanding thing I'd ever done. My body was so sore. Upper body, because of the strength it took to maneuver, and my one leg, I was standing, I was 3 tracking. But what I share with you this past December, after 2 seasons of taking, just on 2 separate trips, taking a day and a half lesson and a day lesson from different adaptive places in Park City and Breckenridge. Then the following season, my husband took me out and we did this without supervision and without coaches with us, and that was frightening. But then this last December, we were at Park City, which kind of feels like home to me because that's where we ski the most. So I know what to expect. I know our ski out area. But But I have to tell you that when I talked to you guys about it in December, I don't know what it was, but the anxiety and the stress and the fear that I felt, I don't know if it was I was fear of failure or fear of falling, fear of hurting myself and not being able to ski anymore. I don't know what it was, but for 2 days, it almost paralyzed me. I fought and fought and fought to get myself out there, but it took me 2 days to relax and actually enjoy it. Well, last week we were in Lake Tahoe. We went North Tahoe, and I hadn't been there since pre-amputation to ski. And even then it was South Tahoe. And I have to tell you that, yes, I was a bit nervous, but not anywhere near December. I'll tell you what, consistency, right? For those of you that are adaptive skiers and you live in a ski area, how nice that you go out all the time, because I did find that I felt like I was continuing my December trip here in March, and I didn't feel like I had all this space between and was wondering if I still had it. Like, I felt like I was still in the same trip, and we went right out and took the first ski lift straight up to the top and looked 4 ways down, and I had the best time with my family. And I tell you this because consistency is key, right? Now, if I don't ski for another year, that first time out's probably going to be a little nerve-wracking. It's probably going to turn my stomach upside down, and it's going to be tough. But I can tell you that pushing through versus caving to fear, the rewards were so much greater. And the fact that I'm so much prouder of myself for actually facing a fear head on, dealing with the way it made me feel, and getting out there and accomplishing something that only I could accomplish with nobody else's help. I mean, I had my husband there, yes, and he always is supporting me, but he couldn't ski for me. That was all me. And there is nothing greater than facing a fear head on and winning. And so that determination, I'm guessing you're going to hear in a lot of the themes of these stories that are coming in April. And I bet you're going to hear Coach Dar talk about facing fears next week when we interview her. And I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to all these people. They're all fantastic people. They all have a wealth of information to share with you. And I just don't want you to miss an episode. So this is a short but sweet podcast for you today to whet your appetite for next week and the month of April, and probably a little after April for some of my adaptive skiers who are competing right now. But don't miss an episode. Make sure you subscribe to my podcast so you don't miss them come out. And I guarantee you will feel empowered. You're going to feel lit up inside. You're going to be ready to take on the world. And you're going to have some key themes that are going to come out from each one of these people speaking that will guide you and help you make the best of your life, which is why I do this podcast. Because if I can be happy after making the decision to amputate, then I want you to be able to be happy, to feel like you're living a great life. Amputation or limb difference isn't the end of the world. Your sickness will not be the end of this world. You can fight through it. I know you can. Believe in yourself. Stick it to it. Rise up and embrace the challenge. Embrace that fear. You will come out stronger, and you will be a warrior for doing that. So this week, my call to action to you is to grab this book, The Art of Bouncing Back by Coach Dar, and get into it and read it. I think you're going to really like some of her topics in here, and be ready to listen to an amazing interview with her next Wednesday on Be a Warrior podcast. And I hope, like always, you have an amazing rest of your week, the best weekend ever. Go live your dreams. Don't be afraid to face those fears head on, and know that you are not alone in your challenges and your struggles, but you can rise up. So until next week, as always, be healthy, be happy, be you.